On a stormy night in January of 2020, Yoshiki was running through the woods, searching for Hikaru. The other members of the village screamed for Hikaru as well, but no reply. They decided it was best to give up. Meanwhile, Hikaru groaned in pain as he faintly called for Yoshiki. He saw something strange, referring to it as Lord Uniki, and in his moment of desperation, he reached out to the organism, changing him forever. Months later, in Kubitachi village, the two friends arrived at an ice cream shop. The shop only had Papiko, which made them think the ice cream sign was just a lie, and the two could barely handle the sweltering heat. Yoshiki then reminded Hikaru that he had gone missing in the mountains for a whole week, but Hikaru couldn't remember anything, even though it had been half a year by now. Hikaru wondered how long he would keep nagging him about that, which made Yoshiki grab Hikaru's head, reminding him of how worried they all were. Hikaru then teased the question, "Were you lonely without me?" But Yoshiki replied, "Not at all." Still, Hikaru was sure that his friend cried like a baby, which made Yoshiki grab his head again. Yoshiki decided to ask something strange, and Hikaru poked at the idea of receiving a love confession from him. But Yoshiki replied, "Hell no." He'd been thinking about this ever since Hikaru went missing and came back. The world suddenly went still when Yoshiki said, "You're not Hikaru, are you?" Shockingly, Hikaru, with a stunned look on his face, replied, "How did you? I thought I copied him perfectly." Yoshiki was struck with fear as he saw part of his friend's face transform into an otherworldly creature. This creature held him tightly, begging because it was his first time living as a human. He felt it was so much fun going to school and eating ice cream. The body and personality weren't his, but he liked Yoshiki a lot and didn't want to kill him. As he clutched his best friend tightly, Yoshiki couldn't speak or move a muscle. He accepted that the real Hikaru was gone, and nothing could change that. So, even if the one with him was fake, he still wanted him to stay, and promised not to tell anyone about this. When they were a bit younger, Yoshiki asked Hikaru what they would do once they got out of high school, but Hikaru hadn't really thought about it. He answered he would probably take over his grandpa's shiitake mushroom farm. Yoshiki hadn't thought about his own plans either. Hikaru then told him he was a smart cookie, and advised him to ditch the village and go to Tokyo, and teased that maybe Yoshiki just didn't want to leave him. Hikaru said he would always hang around Yoshiki's place, even if he found a hot girlfriend in Tokyo. That way, Yoshiki wouldn't be able to take her home. However, Yoshiki doubted he can even pull a girl, and Hikaru had told him to lighten up because he always got pissy when they talked about stuff like that. He felt his best friend could easily find a girlfriend. Later on, in school, Hikaru canceled their weekend plans because he was going to the mountains. When Yoshiki asked what for, Hikaru made a funny face replying, "It's a secret." Yoshiki suddenly woke up from that dream. He clutched his body tightly, thinking of when Hikaru was still alive. The last thing he saw was Hikaru's Hara-sensei impression. He thought it was so stupid. He then curled up and cried bitterly as his mom yelled that it was time to eat. He thanked his dad for breakfast and started eating, while the news blared about the hot summer they were having. His dad then asked if Kaoru was still asleep. She was definitely out like a light. Yoshiki just ignored his dad until his mom let him know that Hikaru had come. As Yoshiki put on his shoes, his mother complained about his bangs, saying they would enter his eyes if he didn't cut them. Hikaru came after and tried to tell him a story of what happened at home, but Yoshiki shoved him out of the way, saying they didn't have time for that. They needed to leave quickly or they'd get chewed out by Hara-sensei. Walking with their bikes, Hikaru rambled on about how things were at home, while Yoshiki thought about how he didn't care about what Hikaru was. This was better than not having him here at all. Later, a man named Tanaka arrived at her residence and told them he was sent by his company. Yoshiki's class was rehearsing a song in their school. Yuta was laughing at him, while Hikaru couldn't even comprehend the words on the paper he was holding. At the same time, Tanaka searched the house with his caged rat. He ransacked the closets and found a strange creature on the wall, calling for its mother. With a crowbar in hand, he started tearing it down mercilessly. Later, Tanaka told his colleague that not a sliver of what he found had anything to do with what they expected. The lady over the phone said that was disappointing, and Tanaka thought the company would have learned a thing or two by now, especially after hundreds of years of searching. She told him to stop complaining about the company, fearing that someone would alert the executives. However, he assured her that he would be fine and he took his job seriously. Looking at the scared family, he guessed that thing wouldn't be easy to find. Back to Kibogayama High, Yoshiki was sick of the class movie, but he didn't expect to see Hikaru sobbing. They had watched the movie like 5 times already. However, even though it was stored in Hikaru's memory, this was his first time actually watching it. After school, he and Yoshiki happily chatted as they headed home. They rode through the beautiful scenery of the city and stopped at a shopping arcade before carrying on. They got some snacks, and Hikaru was excited just staring at it. Yoshiki confirmed that they usually ate this together, so it wasn't a big deal for him. But when Hikaru took a bite, his eyes sparkled, like he had unlocked something. He screamed about how incredible it tasted, despite having memories of eating it before. Yoshiki felt it was weird that he remembered it, but kept treating things like a new experience. Hikaru then explained he could recall memories perfectly, but not the actual experiences. He was never alive to begin with, so this was his first time actually being somebody. Yoshiki then asked, "What are you, a ghost?" But Hikaru answered he was more like a sick monster. Yoshiki then noticed the cat named Mince walking up to them. When Hikaru tried to pet it, Mince retracted and hissed viciously, as if it knew that he wasn't human. The cat bolted away, leaving Yoshiki quite nervous. He then asked Hikaru if there was anywhere else he wanted to go, and Hikaru was shocked that Yoshiki wanted to hang out, saying that Yoshiki was too nice to him, and Yoshiki felt like he was just too easy on people, most of all himself. An old lady stopped by the same shop and began to look at the treats. As Hikaru passed by, the woman was startled, drenched in cold sweat, like she had seen a monster. Later on, Yoshiki and Hikaru came across a darter dragonfly. Yoshiki explained there were different darters in autumn and summer, but Hikaru didn't understand the difference. Yoshiki then went ahead, wondering what he was even talking to, because this being was nothing like Hikaru. He thought the whole thing was messed up, including himself as well for going along with this. His mind panicked. "I'm scared. I'm so scared." None of this made sense. Why was this happening? He didn't get it, and he was going nuts. Despite all this, he still wanted Hikaru to stay. Yoshiki's senses came back as soon as Hikaru asked to drop by his place later to read Master plus Master. They bumped into an old lady, who cried out, "Oh, why?" saying Lord Nanuki had come down from the mountains. Hikaru questioned who that was, but Yoshiki told him not to get involved. This kind of stuff freaked him out. As Hikaru took a step, Matsuda screamed, "Ah! Stay away! Be gone!" She ran into her home and quickly shut the doors. And to this, Hikaru's eyes suddenly glowed red. While the friends continued home, Yoshiki asked if the real Hikaru was truly dead. The fake explained that Hikaru's body was still warm and had a pulse, but that he was as good as dead. Yoshiki suspected the fake had killed the real Hikaru, but the fake one explained that the real Hikaru was already at death's door when he found him. The fake recalled wandering through the mountains for a long time, and he couldn't feel anything, like he was a robot. But then, he found the real Hikaru on the verge of death, and somehow ended up like this. When they got to Yoshiki's house, Yoshiki asked Hikaru if he really liked him. There was a tense silence until Hikaru replied, "I like you a lot." Yoshiki knew Hikaru had never said this before, not even once, as a tear rolled down his face. He then told Hikaru to never leave him again. That night, Yoshiki couldn't sleep as his parents argued about Kaoru skipping school. All the while, Hikaru went to Matsuda's home, speaking with a twisted demonic voice, saying she had a delivery. But the woman knew such an ominous voice couldn't be a delivery, especially at this hour. She begged him to stay out, but he finally got in, delivering her end. The next day, Yoshiki and Hikaru rode their bikes out, but Yoshiki was too fast for his friend. He suddenly stopped as 2 police cars passed by. Wondering what happened, Hikaru told him Matsuda had died, and that his mother was talking about it this morning. Yoshiki was uneasy, staring at Hikaru smiling, as though he knew the truth. At school, their classmates were talking about the old lady's death. Some heard she died by stuffing her fist down her throat. On the other hand, Yuta said the old lady was cursed for seeing something she shouldn't have. He felt he was cursed too. He usually took the East Gate mountain path to get home, but because the tunnel was under construction, he had to take a detour through a forest. And it was scary as hell. His eyes grew wide in fear as he recalled that he couldn't even see into the woods. It felt like his eyes couldn't physically stray from the path. When he tried to look up, his body would freeze. Scared for his life, He begged Yoshiki to walk him home, but Yoshiki told him hell no. Yuta kept begging desperately until Hikaru came over, saying he was interested in going with them. Yuta asked if he was sure, since he always thought Hikaru hated horror-esque things. But Hikaru replied it didn't faze him anymore. Shook while he looked at Hikaru. After that, Yuta decided Yoshiki, Yuki, Asako, and Hikaru would all follow him. Meanwhile, Tanaka arrived at Matsura's house to investigate the scene. He smashed the glass with his crowbar and stepped inside. One look around told him the place was a dump. Tanaka then asked Takeda how his father was, and Takeda answered his father had locked himself in, swearing he'd be the next to die. Tanaka laughed until Takeda grabbed him and snapped, saying, "Listen, twerp, people are dying here." Takeda felt this was all because Tanaka's company came trampling in. Tetsu also wished they knew who exactly this company was. He then said a lot of strange things have been happening all over the village lately, pointing out that the Indo's son had gone missing too. Tetsu believed their failed ritual was what caused it to start acting up. Eventually, Yoshiki and his friends arrived at the menacing forest entrance. While Yuta screamed about how scared he was, the rest ignored him and walked through. He found it odd that they arrived on the other side, safe and sound. However, he was grateful for his friends nonetheless. Back at Matsura's house, Tanaka found some writings related to Lord Nanuki. He assumed the old lady must have seen something in her past, and Tetsu confirmed Matsura saw something in the mountains during her childhood that left her traumatized. She used to be much more normal before her daughter disappeared without a trace. Tanaka asked Tetsu if he knew her well, but the man was too scared to speak. As Yoshiki and his friends trekked back through the forest, he felt like something was watching him. When he turned to the side, he saw a creature with an abnormally long neck. As it got closer, it started to twist side to side, causing his eyes to grow wide in fear. He quickly turned, refusing to believe it was real. But Hikaru smirked, saying since he'd seen it, the creature was already following him. Yoshiki struggled to breathe. Then he froze on the spot as the creature swung its neck behind him. Hikaru's eyes glowed red as he took action, but he fell back with blood gushing from his nose. Later on, Tanaka gathered the other men at Tetsu's house because the situation was worse than he thought, and they needed to be somewhere safer. He installed a barrier around the shrine for extra precaution. Tanaka then told the men he visited the mountain earlier and found a bag Hikaru's father usually carried. Opening the bag, they found a weird stone inside. Tanaka was sure it used to be someone's head, but he also said it was highly effective in warding off spirits. With it, most of the menaces wouldn't lay a finger on them. Tanaka assumed the stone was responsible for clearing out the mountain's impurities, but added it would be a stretch to give the stone all the credit, considering what happened to Matsura. Takeda asked what he meant, and Tanaka told him that it had to come down from the mountain and must have found a way to stay hidden amongst them. As Tetsu then muttered that Kohei was right all along, Tanaka asked for permission to start digging around. Meanwhile, Asako was scared when she heard a loud bang. She quickly grabbed Yuki, and the girls ran away. Hikaru opened his eyes to Yoshiki calling him. Luckily, he only had a nosebleed. Yoshiki asked him what exactly happened, and Hikaru replied that the monster wanted to latch onto Yoshiki, so he crushed and ate it. The monster put up quite a fight, which was why his nose bled. Hikaru then told Yoshiki not to look at anything else aside from him, explaining that the creatures only follow when he looks at them. Also, he wanted to be the only one to latch onto Yoshiki. Later, Asako and Yuki saw them walking out and apologized for leaving them behind. Asako was worried about Hikaru's nosebleed, but he didn't make a big deal out of it. Yuki told him about the loud pop they heard, but Hikaru replied that it was probably a misfired scare gun. However, Asako thought she heard something different from them, and also noticed the creepy feeling from the forest was gone. Unknown to her, Hikaru glared at her with his menacing eyes. Yoshiki tried to make sure Hikaru was unharmed. Then, Hikaru examined Yoshiki's body, thinking Yoshiki would always stay by his side. When he saw a fiery glow on him, he silently vowed to never let anything take Yoshiki away. Before the real Hikaru died, his father told him to marry whom he liked as soon as possible, or Lord Uniki would drag her off into the mountains. This was the Indo family rule. According to his father, Lord Uniki was driven by loneliness. It wouldn't touch their family, but it went after the people they cared most about. However, he downplayed the whole thing, saying it was just a myth. In the school storage shed, Hikaru started unbuttoning his shirt in front of Yoshiki, noting that this felt kind of raunchy. But Yoshiki wanted to know what exactly was inside his body, and how Hikaru crushed and ate the creature in the forest. Hikaru revealed the hole in his chest, and asked Yoshiki to stick his hand inside. Yoshiki squirmed as he felt the creature inside his friend, saying it was like marinated raw chicken. Ugh. On the other hand, Hikaru loved how warm he felt and asked him to reach up further. As Yoshiki moved his hand upward, Hikaru loved the feeling, claiming it was akin to a pat on the head while making interesting noises. Suddenly, Yoshiki felt himself being pulled in, so he quickly retracted his hand. Hikaru couldn't help but laugh, but Yoshiki was frightened. Hikaru then put his body on display for Yoshiki, which made him very shy. Yoshiki then slapped his hand away and told Hikaru to button up quickly. Later, Yoshiki went to a shop where a lady recognized him from before. As he left, the memories of what he felt in Hikaru's body were evident in his mind. When he got to his bike, a lady stopped him and said he was getting too close to something dangerous. She told him to get away from it now, otherwise he would get mixed. She explained that if this happened, he wouldn't be human anymore, adding that she could see things other people couldn't. The woman also told Yoshiki that she'd been sensing something horrible from the mountains near Kubitachi village. However, what she felt had vanished suddenly, leaving her wondering where it went, and she suspected it had been tagging along with Yoshiki. She then shared her contact, so Yoshiki could give her a call when he was ready to talk. That night, his phone lit up with the woman's name, Rie Kurebayashi. He stared at the contact, as the memories of everything that occurred flashed through his mind, until he chuckled, sleeping the thoughts away. In their youth, Yoshiki and Hikaru would eat watermelon during the hot summers together. When Hikaru accidentally swallowed a seed, he became sad, telling a story of when his father's friend had eaten one and turned into a fully striped watermelon man and died. As the two boys cried, Hikaru's father came to comfort them over their silly beliefs. Present day, Yoshiki arrived at Hikaru's home, finding him asleep and sweaty. When he sat down, Hikaru kicked him, asking how long he was going to stare without waking him up. The two began to play and wrestle, and with Hikaru winning, he was happy to hear that Yoshiki brought a watermelon for them, claiming no one could eat it like him. As they sat down, Hikaru said he still remembered how it tasted, then tore into it, swallowing a seed and joking about turning into a watermelon man. But Yoshiki didn't react to his funny comment. When Hikaru asked if he wanted to play a game, Yoshiki wasn't interested in that either. Yoshiki recalled how the real Hikaru would make those same jokes whenever they ate watermelon. He felt he couldn't keep doing this alone, acting like everything was normal. Hikaru, on the other hand, said he was just happy to spend time with him like this, and that this was his way of showing how he felt. These words hit Yoshiki hard, filling him with regret for never saying the same for Hikaru when he was still alive. Moments later, while Hikaru napped, a photo nearby caught Yoshiki's eye, reminding him Hikaru's father had gone to the same Forbidden Mountain around the same time of year that Hikaru went there as well. In the village growing up, Hikaru was the only kid the same age as Yoshiki, so they spent their whole lives together. But the Hikaru Yoshiki knew was now gone. Why am I still doing this? Yoshiki screamed inwardly, the thought crashing through his mind in a mix of fear and panic. At last, Yoshiki texted Rie, but as Hikaru's mom called out to him, the reply came, and it was Hikaru who caught the notification, making him wonder who that was. Yoshiki then met up with Rie, and they headed into a restaurant, where she asked him to tell her what happened. After she realized the matter involved his best friend, she commended him for trying so hard, and told him he shouldn't be looking to punish himself. Getting punished by someone was just a way to make things easier on himself. It made no difference to the dead, but they had to face the truth that they were both desperately clinging to the loved ones they had lost. Yoshiki found himself wondering what she meant by both of them. Cutting to the chase, Rie asked him if he noticed eerie things happening around town and in the village. It was causing madness all around, and she assumed the creature that took over Hikaru was the root of it all. She explained the creature was like something straight out of hell. The moment she noticed it had disappeared from the mountain, the distortion had spread like wildfire. She also believed Matsura's death was connected to this. Rie thought back to when her late husband returned. It didn't go well. He ended up giving her son a wound that would never heal, but she would have given anything to have her husband back. Later at school, heavy rain trapped the students indoors. Yoshiki sat quietly, staring out the window, while Hikaru searched for him throughout the building. Yuki eventually found Yoshiki and told him Hikaru was looking for him, but he just told her to let Hikaru know to go home without him. Yoshiki feared Hikaru could kill him whenever he wanted, and he began to fixate on what exactly his friend had become. His thoughts spiraled as he tried to move past everything that had happened, but Hikaru suddenly appeared, snapping him out of his daze. He asked if they could walk home together, but Yoshiki told him to go on without him. Sensing his friend's mood, Hikaru pulled a silly face to lighten the tension, but Yoshiki didn't even blink, leaving Hikaru shocked. Hikaru placed a hand on Yoshiki's shoulder and asked what was wrong, but Yoshiki shoved it off with a sharp, "Get out of my face." Still concerned, Hikaru asked, "Is it my fault?" He could tell Yoshiki was pissed off at him, even though he denied it. Hikaru then asked if Yoshiki was hiding something from him, only for Yoshiki to snap, saying, "Go away, creep." Furious, Hikaru asked what Yoshiki had gone to do in town last week, and why he was messaging a stranger. Yoshiki didn't see any reason to tell him, but Hikaru said he used to tell him everything before. So Yoshiki responded by shouting, "Used to," reminding Hikaru that he wasn't the real one. Hikaru grabbed Yoshiki's hand, asking, "So, am I not enough for you?" Even though everything about him was like the real Hikaru, he was still a fake in the end. Hikaru admitted Yoshiki was right. Enraged, he tightened his grip, almost snapping Yoshiki's arm. But he needed Yoshiki. He couldn't function without him. His mind spiraled as Yoshiki's words echoed, "You're a fake." Hikaru couldn't tell which were his emotions anymore, but he couldn't stop himself from liking Yoshiki. Suddenly, his face transformed, and the paranormal creature began infiltrating Yoshiki's body. Yoshiki was disgusted, until his mind suddenly felt good about it. He then saw the memory of a woman holding a severed head. Eventually, Hikaru released Yoshiki, feeling terrible about what he just did. He apologized as he walked out, and begged Yoshiki, saying, "Don't hate me." Back at home, Yoshiki felt pathetic for not accepting the creature was Hikaru's replacement all along. He knew it could never replace the real Hikaru, so he had to stop treating it like it was the real one. The next day, Hikaru missed school, and Asako asked Yoshiki if something had happened between them. She advised him to make amends because Hikaru had become quite obsessed with him lately. Asako and Yuki joked about Hikaru clinging to Yoshiki like a little brat does to his mother, and recalling how Hikaru was always cheerful around him, Yoshiki quickly ran out of the class. He rushed over to Hikaru's place, finding him sulking by the corner of his room. Yoshiki apologized, but Hikaru still felt bad about what he did. Yoshiki told him he wasn't mad anymore, but when Hikaru tried to touch him, he instinctively flinched. Hikaru believed Yoshiki was mad at him, and asked him if he hated him. Hikaru then said being with him was all he needed, and he didn't care if he hung out with anyone else. Tears flowed as he promised never to invade his body again, apologizing for misusing the real Hikaru's form. This wasn't good, because he was getting closer to this creature. It was dangerous, but he couldn't pull himself away. He felt like Hikaru was just a lonely little brat. Maybe this Hikaru just didn't know anything, and if he was that naive, Yoshiki believed he just had to teach him a few things. Hikaru was finally able to get close to Mints, feeding it some cat food, but when he tried petting it, it decided to run off. Hikaru felt sad and clueless about everything going on around him. Yoshiki noticed how hard he was trying to improve. Then, as Hikaru got excited over the cat pooping, Yoshiki found himself unsure of how to handle him. Over at school, the students were rehearsing for choir again. They only had 2 more weeks till the big recital. After school, Asako told Yuki that Takeshita had something he wanted to say to her. It turned out he had challenged her to an arm wrestling match in front of the other boys. Naturally, Asako crushed him without breaking a sweat. Just as Yuki was leaving, Asako caught the sound of a strange, unsettling voice near the tracks. She immediately stopped Yuki, warning her not to go that way. Trusting Asako's instincts, since they'd always been right, Yuki took a different route. But Asako could still hear the voice repeating, "Coming, coming." At Yoshiki's house, he invited Hikaru to stay for dinner, but Hikaru explained his family already had plans. Just then, they overheard Kaoru complaining to her mom about wanting to wear a yukata to the summer festival, and Hikaru's eyes lit up the moment he remembered there was a festival going on. That night, the boys, along with Kaoru, attended it. A vendor close by complimented Karu's cute yukata, but she didn't look so happy. At Tetsu's place, Takeda said leaving the Indos in charge was a bad idea, especially since Kohei died. His son Hikaru had to shoulder the burden. He believed the strange things were happening because the ritual failed. At the same time, Kaoru was given a snack by Mr. Kameyama. Yoshiki's eyes caught the glint of a cross hanging around a man's neck. While he was distracted, they overheard some people walking by, gossiping about Kaoru missing school and blaming their mother for it. Hikaru suddenly suggested they go get some shaved ice, and Yoshiki mentioned they needed to head to the shrine grounds for that. Without hesitation, Hikaru took Kaoru's hand, and the three of them headed off. Back at Tetsu's place, he explained to the others that only the Indo family had knowledge of how to perform the ritual again. As they debated what to do about the creature from the mountain, they spotted Yoshihiko drinking and scolded him. But he pushed back, questioning whether the creature was even real in the first place. Tetsu explained that the creature had been sealed within Kubitachi for over 300 years. He believed it was the duty of the locals to keep it contained, and now feared that the village could be in serious danger. Takeda had his doubts about trusting Tanaka, especially with how he constantly barged in wearing shoes in the house. But at that moment, Tanaka stepped inside, surprisingly with no shoes. He was shocked that they had kept the ritual going for 300 years. When Tetsu tried to explain how important it was, he tossed a head-shaped stone on the table and explained that it warded off spirits. Tanaka was sure that the Indo family used the stone for their rituals, which meant it could provide access to the mountain. Tetsu then explained the ritual was for the mountain god. Considering they were having a festival for the people now, he said these festivals were important to them, and they even included those born outside the village. Tanaka mentioned that Kubitachi village, along with several other small communities, were a part of Kibogayama town. Yoshihiko tried to add that it used to be a much larger village, but Takeda quickly cut him off. Tanaka found it bizarre that other regions had churches, but all Kubitachi had was Nisayama Shrine. So, he asked the men, "What exactly are you worshipping here?" Tetsu then tried telling him the creature in the mountain wasn't connected to their village. Hikaru was about to step into the shrine when an invisible barrier stopped him. Tanaka's hamster screamed loudly, signaling trouble. He quickly stood up and told the men that the barrier had been damaged. Hikaru made an excuse and told Yoshiki to get some shaved ice for him. With anger in his eyes, he wondered who could have set up the barrier. Elsewhere, Hikaru met up with Yoshiki, who handed him his shaved ice. Hikaru had always wondered what kind of flavor Blue Hawaii was, but Yoshiki told him all shaved ice syrups were the same flavor. Hikaru then asked Yoshiki, "Do I feel the same to you?" Yoshiki froze for a moment before replying, "Nope." But Hikaru seemed happy to hear that. Eventually, Tanaka arrived at the barrier's location. As he put his hand through, he felt a sharp pain in his gut, but he was sure that the creature was around somewhere. Hikaru asked Yoshiki how he realized he wasn't the real Hikaru, and Yoshiki responded that he recognized this when he found the real Hikaru's corpse. That night, the night Hikaru went missing, Yoshiki's mother warned him not to go out. But Yoshiki still dressed up to leave. He told Kaoru he was just going for a walk, but he couldn't fool her. She tried to stop her brother, but he left regardless. While exploring the mountain, Yoshiki stayed hidden from the adults until he finally found Hikaru's body. It was cold and lifeless, but surprisingly, it wasn't as badly damaged as he feared. Breathing heavily, Yoshiki considered to get help, but found himself back home. After that, he was in bed for days, and when he came to, the fake Hikaru was there. Some things felt off, but nobody ever suspected this Hikaru was fake. Hikaru then mentioned it took a while to fix the real body, and was shocked that Yoshiki had hidden the truth for half a year. But this very reason was why Yoshiki could barely sleep at night. He missed the real Hikaru so much. His mind drifted back to when he told Hikaru he hated the village and wanted to move to the city. Yoshiki resented how everyone pried into his family affairs. Hikaru could sense Yoshiki's parents had just had another big fight, but it was nothing new. He also mentioned that there was another fight at Yasuburo's place, because the family heir, Yusuke, was diseased. Yoshiki quickly interjected, explaining that Yusuke wasn't diseased. He was just homosexual. Still, Yoshiki complained about the village being too small, so Hikaru told him to come over anytime he felt like going to the city, and started playing with crabs on Yoshiki's face. Those precious memories brought tears to Yoshiki's eyes. Why did the real Hikaru have to die on him? The fake Hikaru tried to give him some space, but Yoshiki grabbed his shirt, stopping him. Hikaru understood he wouldn't be able to replace the real one, but he promised to keep Yoshiki safe and do whatever he asked. Takeda and the other men arrived at the shrine, and he asked Tanaka to set up another barrier around the village. But Tanaka explained that each barrier cost him an internal organ, so he couldn't make too many. This was how he worked, and he hated his company's method recommendations. Tanaka believed the creature had been drawn to the crowd at the festival, but he couldn't figure out how it managed to move through unnoticed. He concluded it must have taken on someone's form. Back at the train track, a demon Asako noticed earlier was manifesting, but Rie quickly banished it. Recalling her dear son, she hoped Yoshiki was doing alright. After falling to his death in the mountains, Hikaru was disappointed knowing he'd die here, failing to carry out the Endo family duty. And because of his death, his mother would suffer again. He didn't want to make anyone sad, and thought about how Yoshiki would be all alone. As he began to lose vision, he thought this was Lord Uniki approaching him. He desperately needed somebody, anybody, to stay by Yoshiki's side. Kaoru was showering when she saw long strands of hair on her leg. She wondered whose it was, since her family all had short hair. Then she noticed hair sticking out of the bathtub, but as she reached for it, it suddenly pulled back. Panicking, she dressed quickly, but the wig began darting across the room. Looking back, she saw a terrifying creature with long hair behind the door, and she screamed for her mom. During nutrition class, Yuta yelled, "I love fried chicken," even though the food wasn't ready. Once it was prepared, he quickly dug in. Yuki scolded him for skipping itadakimasu, but he told her to quit acting like his mom. While Yoshiki was eating, Hikaru came over to show him their group's over-fried chicken, offering Yoshiki some, but he of course declined. Then, Hikaru asked why he'd been staring at the chicken earlier, and Yoshiki answered it felt like the time he reached inside him. Hearing this, Hikaru blushed and teased him for feeling around quietly. He then asked if Yoshiki wanted to try touching him again. Later on, they snuck into one of the abandoned classrooms, where Hikaru told Yoshiki to make it quick. Yoshiki didn't want to be rushed, because he had to psych himself up first. Soon after, he groaned, as he reached inside Hikaru, but thought it wasn't as bad as before. Suddenly, Yoshiki felt like the alien essence was taking over his body. He was scared and tried pulling his hand away, but Hikaru looked like he was enjoying this. Just before it could reach his brain, Yoshiki yelled for Hikaru to stop. Hikaru said he was only trying to touch him back a little, claiming Yoshiki needed to get used to it. Yoshiki, however, suspected Hikaru enjoyed it far too much. He warned him to stop doing things that made others uncomfortable. Hikaru understood and swore he wasn't lying, because he promised to never lie to him. Yoshiki replied he believed him, kinda. Prior, Rie explained what she meant by mixing. Even while Yoshiki was alive, his insides would cling to the creature that was Hikaru. Over time, Yoshiki would become a part of him, and Hikaru would stay with him forever. And Yoshiki would begin attracting beings from the other world. Looking at the dark patch on his arm, Yoshiki wondered if it had gotten darker than it was yesterday. At dinner, Hikaru refused to have a bath because she was scared of the wig ghost, but her mom felt she was being ridiculous. Meanwhile, Takeda furiously approached Tanaka, asking how much longer he would keep playing with his pet. Tanaka then explained he was formulating a plan. Takeda saw a sword by the side and inspected it, but it was so chipped it wouldn't cut a thing. However, Tanaka said the blade cut fine, just not humans. He then held up a bell, saying he would let this thing do the searching. Over at an arcade, Yoshiki used a claw machine to win a toy. He explained to Hikaru and Yuta that Kaoru always made him play these games, hence why he was good at them. Yuta praised Yoshiki's talent, but joked that his only flaw was his hardcore emo vibe. Despite that, Yoshiki felt flattered. Hikaru suggested a dip in the pond might wash away Yoshiki's dark aura, and when they pictured it, both he and Yuta burst out laughing. Yuta refused to return the toy Yoshiki had won. Hikaru guessed Yuta wanted to give it to a girl, but nervously, Yuta assured them it was for himself. Later, Yoshiki told them about the wig ghost his sister had mentioned. Since he hadn't seen it himself, Hikaru offered to check the bathroom after they finished eating. Yuta declined following them, saying he had other plans. On their way, Hikaru explained the ghost was probably like an impurity. They were bound to show up wherever humans lived, and he added they were attracted to Yoshiki because he was nice. But Yoshiki thought otherwise. When they got to the house, Yoshiki offered Hikaru some barley tea, but Hikaru wanted to inspect the bathroom first. There, Hikaru felt the wig ghost's presence and questioned why it targeted Yoshiki. He planned to crush and eat it like before, assuring Yoshiki he'd protect him. Yoshiki waited for a while until he heard a loud bang. As he grabbed the door, he sensed something strange. Then, he opened it and saw Hikaru passed out in the bathtub. He tried helping, but got the same feeling as when Hikaru tried to take over his body. Suddenly, Yoshiki was pulled into the water. The wig ghost pulled him down until he suddenly saw himself in a strange place. Yoshiki assumed he was dreaming, but he started hearing people's voices as a strange creature emerged from the ground surrounding him, crushing him. The voices continued, echoing in his mind. The scene shifted, showing Yoshiki a young Hikaru holding the bird cage they once cared for together. Hikaru blamed him for Crowley's death, saying it was Yoshiki's turn to feed it. Yoshiki tried to explain that nothing could be done, but Hikaru told him to stop making excuses. The two exchanged blame until Yoshiki's final accusation pushed Hikaru over the edge. They fought in both memory and reality. Hikaru sensed something was wrong with Yoshiki and shoved him away before drowning. The wig ghost possessed Yoshiki, using him as a shield. Enraged, Hikaru endured Yoshiki's bite, then struck, blasting the ghost from him in an instant. As Yoshiki snapped back to his senses, he was confused, wondering what he had done. Hikaru noticed the wig ghost on the corner of the ceiling, but it quickly vanished. At night, Yoshiki apologized for hurting Hikaru, but Hikaru felt he was at fault for letting the creature get away. Thankfully, Yoshiki was able to resist its control a little bit, but the only thing Yoshiki could remember was trying to drown Hikaru, and he couldn't stop thinking about it. Yoshiki wondered what would happen if he ever killed Hikaru one day, but Hikaru was just relieved that Yoshiki had returned. He again promised to protect him and felt tears welling up after everything that happened. Yoshiki asked why he would go so far, and Hikaru replied that he just sprang into action without knowing. Hikaru then suggested they go catch some frogs, but Yoshiki declined, calling that too hillbilly. Hikaru loved the sticks, but Yoshiki didn't think he belonged here. Soon after, Yoshiki's mom returned, wondering if they had jumped into the river, and Hikaru ran to her, asking what was for dinner. Yoshiki wondered if the monster decided to attack his mom or Karu. As the lights came on, Hikaru asked to eat Yoshiki's share of the food, teasing that he was done grown. And while Yoshiki thought, he's not Hikaru, he's not even human, he also felt if things stayed like this, maybe the fake could live a regular human life. Later, Tanaka and Takeda went up the mountains and found a tiny shrine. As Tanaka started kicking it, Takeda held him back, but he had a feeling it was still down there. He then cut his hand and dipped the bell in his blood before tossing it in front of the shrine. Tanaka explained the bell was like a tracking dog and would track down Lord Nanuki. He told Takeda it might be moving around, so they needed a keen nose to sniff it out. However, Takeda feared Tanaka was bad news for their village and would destroy it someday, but deep down, he probably wanted him to. In class, Yoshiki brought out a flyer about the Swamp Man, a man who got struck by lightning and transformed into someone else. He explained that according to legend, the man died. Then another man with the same appearance and memories spawned. The guy doesn't realize he's different from the dead one and just went home like that. Yuta and Asako claimed the two guys were different, but for a split second, they existed at the same time. Hearing their answers, Yoshiki thought in their minds the real Hikaru was still alive. He wondered what even made people themselves. Was it their memories, cells, or experiences? Yoshiki also pondered what even defined the death of a person. Asako later returned Hikaru's gym clothes she had borrowed, because the female ones were too small. Afterwards, she asked if they all wanted to hang out this weekend. Yuki suggested a sleepover at one of their places, and Hikaru offered his. A while later, Tetsu came across Yoshiki and Hikaru by the side of the road. Hikaru's bike got a flat tire, so the man offered them a ride in his truck. That evening though, late at night at Kibogayama High School, another ominous creature had suddenly appeared. Eventually, Yoshiki and his classmates gathered at Hikaru's place for a chill time. Hikaru then asked Yoshiki to get a game from his room, and upon opening the door, Yoshiki got flashbacks of the real Hikaru, smiling at him. As he looked around the room, he noted that it hadn't changed a bit. A cap then fell on Yoshiki's head, and he wondered where he had seen it before. He then remembered a summer festival from his childhood, where his father told him the festival honored the gods on the mountain, and warned him to never go up, or he'd be taken. Soon after, Hikaru arrived with his father, who wore the hat. Although Yoshiki's dad never really talked about it, he remembered the moment so vividly. As he pulled out the game from the shelf, a piece of paper fell out, and on it was something written about Hichi and the Indo's role. Nervously sweating, Yoshiki slipped the paper into his pocket. At night, they all started playing with the fireworks. Hikaru was amazed at how awesome they were. Asako then took pictures to capture the fun moment. When the fireworks died out, Yuta noticed a shed, which Hikaru explained was their temple. Yuta mistakenly bumped into Yuki, making her drop the fireworks she had just lit. Hikaru's lighter wasn't lighting up as well, so he decided to go to Yamahisa to get one, and Asako offered to accompany him. With the heat becoming too much, Yoshiki decided to chase after Hikaru and Asako so they could get ice cream. On their way to the store, Asako clenched her finger nervously while asking Hikaru, "Who are you really?" Hikaru froze, turning to her with a frightening look. At a younger age, Asako could hear strange, otherworldly sounds. Her grandmother was surprised she could hear them because she herself could only see a little. Remarking their family's ability to sense these things was generational. She explained their world overlapped with the world of dead people and that people's souls crossed over when they died, but would eventually return to their world. Moments later, Yuki waved over to Asako, who ran to see her. But while running, Asako suddenly heard footsteps. Then a ghost passed by her. Asako heard the ghost say, "Look out," and she yelled at Yuki to stop. Just then, she recalled her grandmother saying some of the otherworldly creatures were good, while others were frightening. But she warned Asako to try and stay away if she could. And luckily, Yuki wasn't hurt. Hikaru began panicking as he realized that Asako knew about him. Just as he tried to take over her body, Yoshiki interrupted him, and Asako fell unconscious. Hikaru quickly explained what happened, and that he didn't mean to do anything. Yoshiki wondered what he meant by this, and Hikaru replied, "It'd be sad if she died." Yoshiki's eyes widened in fear and disbelief. He couldn't believe Hikaru just tried to take a human life. However, Hikaru didn't think dying and living were any different. He himself didn't have a life, so it made no difference to him. Hearing this now, Yoshiki believed he lied when he said he didn't want to kill him. But Hikaru refuted this, calling Yoshiki special, adding that if he died, they wouldn't be able to get ice cream together. Yoshiki was angered by his words, claiming Hikaru was contradicting himself. He asked if Hikaru was the one who killed Matsura, and imagining how he must have done this made him throw up. At that moment, Asako regained her senses. She then claimed Hikaru had been possessed by a ghost, and she explained she noticed these changes when Hikaru came back. His voice was weird sometimes, so she figured something had possessed him. However, she felt this ghost was protecting Yoshiki and believed they were safer together. She felt embarrassed, thinking they would see her as crazy, but Yoshiki pretended to take her word. Shortly after she left, Yoshiki took his leave, bumping into Hikaru and ignoring him. The next day, Yuta wondered why Yoshiki had left abruptly. Asako then told Hikaru to send her good wishes to Yoshiki, and after they left, he sulked by the corner of his room, wondering what life even was. To him, dying didn't mean you'd disappear from the world. Your form could change, but your soul remained here. He thought Yoshiki had a nice soul, but retracted his evil thoughts because he didn't want Yoshiki to die. Was this his opinion, or the real Hikaru's thoughts? He couldn't tell, but the feelings were eating away at him. Hikaru was stunned the next day, as he saw Yoshiki waiting at the door for him. Dang, Yoshiki knows this monstrosity is dangerous, yet he keeps coming back. Is this the correct choice to make? Let me know. Subscribe to keep up with future parts, but for now, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy Tea, and I'll see you all in the next one.